on a very practical level for industry. Now we're going to the shores of Hudson Bay, where researchers are trying to solve a mystery. This is the bridge of the Amundsen, cruising 20 kilometers off the northeast coast of Hudson Bay.
Yeah, well, we'd like to go anywhere around the perimeter of the station.
Deep beneath us, there's a bathtub-shaped formation in the seabed filled with mud. Geologist Sam Bentley wants to get some.
First thing I would like to do is identify more locations to set up.
So they're going to give us tonight, or we just go away?
If we could just fill in like we've done before, that would be okay.
This is what Bentley was after. A perfectly preserved cube of earth, compacted and buried for centuries beneath 100 meters of water.
We collected what's called a box core, which allows us to recover a fairly undisturbed section of the sediment-water interface, the uppermost few centimeters of the seafloor. And that is a portion of the seabed that contains the history, if you will. Each layer represents an event by which sediment was carried from the water column and brought to that location.
Bentley and his team will probe that muddy sediment for data. Not so much about the mud itself, but about where it's been. More than 1/3 of the fresh water draining into the oceans from Canada does so through Hudson Bay, from rivers that wind across 5 provinces and 2 territories. But a recent study from Columbia and Princeton universities shows the amount of water in those rivers dropping 13% since 1960. That's a lot of fresh water not going into Hudson Bay.
The freshwater content of marine water, the salinity, in other words, has an effect on the formation of sea ice. You lower freshwater input, which means you raise the average salt content of the surface waters, and you probably decrease the likelihood that sea ice will form, or maybe it won't last as long.
Bentley's researchers will use this mud to try to measure river flows going back 2 centuries. Radiographic imaging will detect patterns too fine to see with the human eye. They'll date samples using radioisotopes and examine them for signs of storms, tidal surges, changes in river flow. Their aim? To compare past river levels with the drop underway now and try to figure out where it might end.
It's possible that it won't directly affect people who don't ever come up here. But there is a recognized and valuable sector of Canadian society that does live up here, that does work, and this has a direct bearing on their day-to-day existence. It's also part of the larger suite of observations that need to be undertaken to understand what is presently happening and to predict what will be happening in the future to Canada at large.
Most scientists agree a major shift in the salinity, the salt level, would send a wave of change through the whole ecosystem. A wave that would eventually, in some form, reach even those of us far beyond the horizon.
Yes. I'm posting on YouTube.